Welcome to Beyond Your Wildest Imagination. This is a podcast about life after addiction, where we sit down with local guests from the Cowichan Valley who share their powerful stories about getting sober, staying sober, and how good life can get. We have an incredibly inspiring guest today with us, Trent G from the Cowichan Valley. He's not only overcome addiction, but he's a cancer survivor as well. And now he's running ultra marathons. I hope that his story reminds all of us to never give up, no matter how hard life can get. Trent G, welcome to the show.
Hi, Brandon. Thank you.
Yeah. You know, our listeners at home, we want to try to connect with them. And what we're doing here on this podcast is talking about life after addiction. But within that framework, the way to connect to listeners is to talk about how bad it actually was out there. I know firsthand that to get where you're at, it takes baby steps. And I want to go back a little bit further and talk about what life was like in active addiction. How did that unfold for you? Just to shed light a little bit, to open the window and look into some of the struggles and challenges that you faced. And how did that start for you?
Well, knowing what I know now, and I didn't know it then, it started as a little kid, stealing money out of my parents' change jar to get chocolate from the chocolate store on almost a daily basis and being crafty about it so they wouldn't notice. There was a time when I got caught stealing my mom's diet supplements because they were chocolate. And I thought I'd be smart, and once I had gotten caught, I would take them out of the bottom tray because there was like a box of chocolates. And again, caught again. I got caught stealing my sister's gripe water. Being crafty about that, I would steal it again, but I would top the bottle up with water. And my sister is healthy today, so it didn't do too much damage to her back then. And I didn't realize that there was, I just thought that was just me being a little kid and doing things I shouldn't. As life went on, I was from a small town in southern Alberta, and drinking was the game. So I did a lot of that. And I can remember a time when I couldn't do certain activities unless I was drinking, and I didn't think it was possible. Life would go on. I'd have a child and get married and then divorced and married again. And I moved out of that town. I didn't really, being in a small town, everybody knew what I was up to, and I didn't want that. So I had this calling to move out to the West Coast. It didn't really happen right away. So I moved to the interior with my job. I was able to transfer. And I lived there for a couple of years with my child and wife at the time. And then I decided to do something different. And I ran away with someone, not being a good person. And I got to Vancouver Island. That lasted about 6 months, and that relationship totally fell apart. I was heading for bankruptcy at that time. And I hadn't really tried hard drugs. The hard drugs was about to come. After that relationship had fallen apart, my son had moved out to Alberta with my parents, and it gave me a bunch of freedom that I didn't know what to do with. I was still working, but I was, going out to the nightclubs every night, and the drugs had started. They presented themselves, and I had found something that I really liked. It was a lot of fun, and life went on. As life went on, I found it more difficult to go to work. I'd spent a lot of time with this company that I was at, and I made the decision to go out on my own. And it seemed like all the time the drugs were becoming more and more, and I was finding myself getting high at work and things like that. So, after quitting, more freedom again. And I can remember one incidents where I was actually on the phone making a phone call to get more drugs when I realized that I shouldn't be spending the money that I was spending. And I'd often see my rent money go away, or money that I needed for something else, and then scrambling later on to try and make up for it. justifying my decisions and rationalizing, life would get worse. When it got really bad, I'd lost my license for a year due to speeding tickets because I was always in a rush to go places, and just other things were starting to go to pawn shops with my tools and things like that, which I never thought I'd ever see myself do. Living with people that I would have never considered even associating with, and I had a girlfriend in my height of my addiction when I was trying to clean up, and she had passed away, and that kind of threw me over the edge, and that's when things got incredibly bad. Stepping back a bit, when I had gotten to Vancouver Island and that relationship had fallen apart, I was actually directed to a 12-step meeting that was for supporting those who loved people with addiction problems or alcohol problems. And I went to those meetings, but I was never really, it wasn't right. And I still was, because she had a problem, I didn't. Later on, when the drugs came to be a big part of my life, I was wondering, I knew I was in trouble. There was things that were just not happening for me that should be happening, and I couldn't stop. And I was doing things that I didn't want to do. And I was working in one of the local stores, and a friend of mine came in, and he was actually in tears. And I asked him, I said, "What's going on?" He says, "Well, if I don't quit using and doing drugs, my girlfriend says that I got to get out." And he said, "I went to this 12-step meeting for drugs, and my friend that took me won't answer the phone now." And I looked at him and I said, "When's the meeting?" He says, "Well, it's tomorrow at 7:00. I said, "Well, I'll go with you." And I went seriously to support him, thinking that, maybe I could get some ideas on how I could stop in that. And I went to that meeting. It was like a little over 20 years ago. And in my mind said that I should feel sad for these people because they had to abstain from all drugs, all mind-altering substances. And I went, "Oh, that's terrible. I just want to stop doing this one. All the other ones I can manage." And that really didn't work for me. I wouldn't go to those meetings very often. Usually if I got out of jail or dumped by someone I liked, or, maybe to show my parents that I was actually doing better. And so not very often, a handful of those meetings. And I guess, about 11 or 12 years ago, things gotten really bad. Like I had said, the pawn shops, the bad decisions, living with people that I wouldn't even consider associating with. And a friend of mine took me and sat me down and said, "Trent, you've lost your license. You've lost this. You don't have a vehicle." And I'm like, "I don't need a license. I can live without one." And I don't, I'm rationalizing and justifying. And he talked me into going to a treatment center. And he actually made it sound like I'd be going to the Betty Ford Center or the Eric Clapton Institute, matching coveralls, sit around and read books and stuff like that and get fed good. And so I went. I had to do something or I was going to end up dead. And I got to where this treatment center was, and it was in a cul-de-sac, and the taxi driver says, "Here we are." And I looked and I said, "Where are we?" And he said, "Well, that's the address there." I said, "That can't be the address." And as we were sitting there, a bunch of people came out the door, and I looked at them and I went, "Oh yeah, that's the address." I could tell just from the looks of them that was the treatment center. I had started going to the 12-step meetings, but I was also living with people that were in active addiction, and that just didn't go hand in hand. After the treatment center, through their guidance in that, I had started going to 12-step meetings every day. One of the things about being on Vancouver Island was that I could find a meeting every day to go to. And I did all of the suggestions that they had told me to do, except for a few that were a little bit more tougher. And I made it 3 months, which was amazing for me. And my life was starting to feel pretty good about that. Definitely very empty. I had a 1-day relapse and I broke my ankle. It was very difficult going back to the 12-step meetings to say that, but I knew that I had to, or my life was just going to get worse. I mean, one relapse 1 day and a broken ankle is not a good track record. Then I went and got another 3 months, and I doing more suggestions, and then finally it was like getting a sponsor and working the steps at that 12-step meeting that it actually started to catch. I mean, one of the incidents prior to going to the treatment center too was that I thought I was doing good, and I was going to the meetings, and I actually lied to get a 30-day key fob. Right? And the reason for that was my probation officer was also familiar with the 12-step programs, and I thought if I could put my keys on his desk, he would see the 30-day key fob, and I'd say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing quite well, Cecil. Everything's going great," and he would play along with my game. I mean, I felt like crap for lying about the key fob, but whatever, I'd get by. I'm working a program of honesty, and not being very honest doesn't work. That following weekend, I again had gotten locked up, and this was right after the friend had the discussion with me about going to the treatment center. So I went Monday morning to the probation office. I was sitting outside at 6:30. I had no idea what time they started. I had no idea which parking lot he would pull in. So I went from the back of the building to the front of the building. And he showed up for work. And I looked at him and I said, "Cecil, that treatment center you had talked about that I said I didn't want to go to," I says, "I think I better go. I got locked up on the weekend and I've been lying." And he made the arrangements, or he made a phone call, and then he gave me the number and said, "The rest is up to you." And I phoned the next day, and I guess that was the start of my recovery. And recovery from there for me was going to the meetings, the couple of relapses. After the last relapse, I had cut ties with everybody, had to do all the changes, which was change everything. I mean, I didn't geographically relocate. There was some places like I wouldn't go to anymore. I don't go to nightclubs and stuff like that. It's like, going to the barber shop and not getting a haircut. You don't go to listen to the conversations. Eventually you'll get a haircut if you're there long enough. And I just moving forward with that, I started to be get into service with the 12-step groups, and I did detox panels, and I'd go to the camp outs and things like that, and pretty much just kind of moved on from there. So kind of got me to where I am today. I mean, there was some ups and downs. It definitely wasn't all rosy, like we had mentioned about I had cancer.
Yeah, I think it's really important to talk about your recovery and how you didn't give up, and how I think shedding light to the listeners out there, anybody who's struggling in addiction, that your time's not lost when you go in, and you talked about the relapse or the relapses that you had and how hard that was for you going back in and showing up and telling the truth again. And I know that gut-wrenching feeling. It's a walk of shame, and it's really challenging to go back and pick yourself up again. And I kind of want to break the stigma around that to let people know that going back it's not a new beginning. It's you've started your journey. It's just part of the path. And I think your story is a testament to that. I think it's really valuable for you to share that, how challenging that was for you, but also that your journey was a process. You touched on your cancer and how that impacted you. And that was, again, part of your process. And I think that when you get a cancer diagnosis, no matter who you are, it changes your life that day in some shape or form. And what it sounds like to me is that you chose to do something about that. What did you do for your recovery for cancer? What prompted you to make changes in your life? What was that like for you?
What did I do for the recovery from cancer? The biggest thing that rings through to me was a question that I had asked my radiologist. And I had gone in and I said, things aren't going very well for me. I had talked to a lot of people and they had a lot of negative stories. And I was kind of down in the dumps. Also, prior to the diagnosis, I had been at one of the 12-step campouts. And there was a couple there. And the husband had just gotten out of his treatments for throat cancer. And it was around the campfire and they were the guest speakers and they had a talk. And he sadly did not make it. So that weighed heavy on my mind, as well as a lot of the other stories. And I asked my radiologist, who's your oldest patient and how old is he? And she said, this Jim guy, and he's like 94 years old. I believe he runs marathons, and I think he still runs. I'd have to check on that to be sure. And that stuck in my head. The other one was a book that was given to me that it said in there when you're going through chemo and that, to be as active as you can, get people to take you out and walk. And the reasons for that is that it helps the chemotherapy work, and it also helps it leave your body. And when you're going through chemotherapy, having it leave your body is instrumental because it's one of the worst feelings and sensations ever. So I tried to be as active as I could, and I remained active after that. I think it was the 4-month mark, I went into a doctor's appointment, and he looked at me and he said, "Mr. Goodwin, you've gained 7 pounds, and you've lost it. What's going on?" And the first thing that went through my mind is he thinks I'm a drug addict again and relapsing, and I'm going to lose the good treatment. Now, when I got diagnosed, all of my appointments, because my family doctor, by this time, I was honest with and knew I was a drug addict, he went to bat for me, and I got through all the appointments really, really quickly. They all happened really, really fast. I had the initial doctor's appointment. I had an ultrasound within probably an hour of that, and I was quite amazed. But now my brain's going blank. Sorry.
That's okay. Yeah. So you spoke about reading these books and getting inspired from this 95-year-old man, I believe, and what he was doing, and he was very active, and that inspired you. And what shape or form did that take on for you? Yeah.
Well, that's kind of where it started. And then I had gone to this doctor's appointment where he had commented on the weight loss, and I'm thinking, he thinks that I'm going to relapse and they're just going to throw me to the street because I'm not, doing what I should be doing as a patient. And he says, "Well, what have you been doing that you've lost this weight?" And I said, "Well, I've been hiking." And he looked at me kind of strange, and I'm like, okay, he doesn't even believe me. I says, "Well, I've hiked up this mountain and this mountain, and this one, and there was like 4 or 5. The first one was like 2 weeks after the radiation. I'd gone out to see my mom, and I hiked up the ski hill. I didn't even make it. It was too hot. I ran out of water, and I went down. And then a couple days later, I'd hiked up with my son. That is a moment I'll never forget, the conversation that we had 3/4 of the way up the mountain, hiding under a rock to get out of the rain. Anyways, back to the doctor, he kind of kicks his chair back and he starts laughing. I'm like, okay, this is getting strange. Like, why is he laughing at me? And he says, Mr. Goodwin, this is pretty amazing. And I'm like, what's amazing about it? He says, in the 3 or 4 months you've been doing all of this, he says, anybody else that's been a patient of mine that's going through this is still they're just getting out of bed. And I kind of went, whew, that's cool. Okay, I'll take that one. The running part came when I'd gone back to visit my mom because my son worked shift work. I went into the local running store that I had bought a pair of sandals and a pair of hiking boots the summer before. Getting cleaned up, I was starting to hike and get my family back in my life. And, I'd had all of these adventures planned, and had a problem with my back. That was actually how I discovered the cancer, was to go through the process of neck surgery, which never has happened.
Had you done any hiking previous to this, or you were just inspired to hike up mountains because of your cancer?
I did hike before, not like I do now or anything even compared to what I do now. But it was just the matter of getting out and being active,
Yeah.
and going home to see my mom. It's in the Rocky Mountains, so and I went into the hiking store, and I asked him. I says, because my son working shift work, I was too sick to be going into the woods by myself. And I asked if there's any local hiking groups, because I figured the running shoe store or the hiking store would know. And a girl popped her head around the corner of the aisle and said, "I don't work here, but we have a group that goes on Thursday, and you're more than welcome to come." And she was a young woman. Her name was Kayla. And I went on that group. It was a Thursday evening. And in the process of doing that, she was talking, and I was eavesdropping at this time too. She was talking about her weekend, and she had gone on a trail run. And I went, "Trail run? What's that?" And I looked at her and I said, "So when you go on a trail run, what do you wear on your feet? Like hiking boots or running shoes?" And she said, "Trail runners." And I felt really, really dumb. So I didn't ask any more questions. And I went back to the running shoe store the next day and I said, "Where's your trail runner section?" And I bought my first pair of trail runners.
Nice.
And the trail running pretty much kind of started right around that point. I wasn't in any condition to run, but
We will talk about the ultra runs and the progression of how you transferred into that. But before we jump to that, I'd like to talk about something that you mentioned. You said that you hiked up a mountain with your son,
mm-hmm.
and how much that meant to you. And if you're okay with it, I'd like to hear, what did that mean to you? What was that like, that connection?
Well, my son and this is my son that moved to my parents' place when I chose to move to Vancouver Island. And there was some animosity in that. And I wasn't really, felt like a good parent, and I don't think I was a good parent at the time. And I have another son as well, which we've bonded more because he's local. Again, I'm not a good parent there either at the time. But what had happened is the three of us went on some hikes in my first year of recovery. And that was like, they didn't want me in their lives. I was a mess and unreliable and just kind of not a good person. And I was getting into trouble. So, the mother of the youngest kid didn't want me around at all because of the bad influence. And my family out in the Rockies had kind of written me off because, they were just waiting for the letter or the phone call saying that I was dead. And I've actually had friends tell me that one of my relatives actually had told them that he wasn't doing very good. We're expecting a phone call. So my oldest son, he got into recovery before I did. And I thought, well, I better smarten up. So on the hikes going out to, in my first year, was kind of like a rebonding of family. And the hike going up the mountain, it was the local ski hill in the Crow's Nest Pass. And we did probably 3/4 of the way up, and it started raining, and we found a spot to hide under a rock, like it's a big rock, and get out of the rain. And we just talked. I can't even remember what the conversation was. And it stopped raining, and he says, "Okay, well, I'm going to head back to the house." And I said, "Okay, I'll meet you there, but I'm going to the top of the mountain because I haven't come this far to not finish getting to the top of the mountain." And he says, "Oh, okay." So we went up to the top, and I don't know why that rings so prevalent in my brain, but it was like a father-son moment. Maybe some forgiveness or something happened. I don't know. But him and I have a really good relationship, as I do with both my sons and my stepdaughter as well. My stepdaughter had absolutely nothing to do with me. I had never met my granddaughter until my 1 year clean, and that was the first time she came to my 1 year clean cake. So that was pretty cool. and we associate now. I actually get to pick her up and drop her off at school sometimes and things like that. She's 10 now. Yeah, it was, that 1 year cake, there's just two things that happened, and that was the special one. And the other one that wasn't special was one of the girls that I had met in early recovery at one of the campouts had relapsed. And she actually came and was coloring with my daughter on the floor. And it would be pretty much 4 weeks later, I got the phone call. I was actually walking into a 12-step meeting, and I had got the phone call that she had passed away because she relapsed and didn't make it.
Oh.
That's one of the things I know of being a little bit older, in that I have a lot of friends and they're just not alive anymore, which is sad.
I think that's the real truth. That's what's happening here is, it's really important to show what can happen when you create connection by taking little steps in your own recovery, and the connection you had with your family and your son, and how that can be cultivated again. And that can be beautiful. And there is also the other side of things that, this drug epidemic that we're in is also killing people.
Well, there's no doubt about that. Yeah, like every day.
I myself have lost a brother and some friends, and
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, it's. I think that's part of the reason we're doing this podcast, and for you to come and share your story, it's really impactful. I'd like to hear a little bit more now about your journey through the baby steps that you were taking up. Maybe they weren't baby steps, the small steps that you were taking, 1 foot in front of the other. That's something that we can attest to in our recovery journey, but also in life. And you in particular have used that to start hiking up hills and mountains and getting back into your family and being accepted in the community. And I'd love to hear more about how that turned into ultra running for you.
Well, the recovery portion of it was definitely small steps. I knew that there was these 12-step meetings that seemed to work for people. I had seen it. I felt bad for them that they couldn't do any drugs a long time ago. And then I thought, well, if they can do it, then I can do it. And I thought it would be easy in the beginning, and it wasn't. They have all of these suggestions. They don't tell you that you have to do anything. They just suggest it. And I would slowly work these suggestions, and it still wasn't really working in the beginning. I think one of the things that the first portion of it is becoming honest. You have to be honest with yourself. Okay, I have a problem. I knew I had a problem. And what is there to do about it? And then, the open-mindedness that comes with the struggle, like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't seem to get this to work. What do I do next? And then it's presented, especially if you have a support group. So, moving forward, I would do a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and it would be baby steps to where I actually, ended up in the treatment center. That happened fairly quickly. And then after that, I had a foundation of something to build on. And I had become, more open-minded, more willing to try these things that were recovery related. And I kind of submersed myself in it. I still, even to this day, I still do the 12-step meetings, like 1 or 2 a week. And I guess for me now, it's more about helping others than it was back then, where I was needing the help. And building new associations with people that are not using and have found a new way to live. That's actually one of the sayings in the group.
I think that those baby steps are really important, and that is in the 12-step program. It's just for today, right?
Yeah.
And so just focusing on
one day
at a time, one moment at a time, one step at a time.
Especially in the beginning, because my mind was still, they say you'll lose the desire, you'll quit doing drugs, lose the desire to do drugs, and find a new way to live. Well, the first step is to quit. And, that happens in a moment. Staying quit is a different thing. So losing the desire comes with time. And it's probably over the course of a year, losing that desire, maybe a little longer than that even. It took a lot of those meetings and a lot of being focused on going to meetings, for me anyways. I mean, some people can put focus into other things.
Speaking of which, it sounds like you've actually put your focus into external exercise, hiking up mountains. And how did that transition for you into, you said you got a pair of trail running shoes.
Yeah.
And how did that help you in your recovery?
Yeah. Well, the trail running, that was to stay physically fit. So I didn't want to get the cancer again. I didn't want to go through that again. And it started a little bit at a time because I couldn't run maybe more than not even a block and I was out of wind. And I built on that. I can remember running around the local quarry when you were allowed on the property. It was a 2-kilometer lap, and I was trying to get my kilometers up and my time down to, something that was, because when you start doing something every day is a new achievement, and you feel good about yourself. All right, I just made 2 laps in a row without walking, and things like that. I went to a Halloween dance, and one of the girls from the 12-step group in Nanaimo said, "Hey, I took up running." And I'm like, "Oh, how far can you run?" She said, "I'm up to like 8 kilometers. I didn't ask her how far. She says, "I can run up like just about 10 kilometers now." And I'm like, "Oh, I can only run like about 5 or 6. So I went back, and that was fuel for my fire to focus on it. And a very long time ago, I raced mountain bikes competitively. And so I had this itch for the competition of it. And I talked my youngest kid's mom into entering a trail run with me. And she says, "Yeah, let's do this." And we never did. And then the following couple of weeks later, I talked her into doing it again, and we registered, and we never went. And then I went, okay, I'm going to do this on my own. And I heard that there was a fun run in Parksville. It was like 8 kilometers. And I thought fun run was good. I thought eventually I'd like to get up to where I could do the Terry Fox run. And I went home to look up this race in Parksville, and I had found the Stewart Mountain Challenge in Thetis Lake. And I thought, whoa, this is this weekend, and it's only 18 kilometers. It's closer than Parksville. And this was an eye-opener for me. So I registered, and I was like last minute even being able to register. And I looked at the results from the previous year, and they're like, oh, the leaders are running 6-minute kilometers. And I went, maybe I have a gift. And I thought, I'm going to give this a try. So I showed up, and I really wasn't in running gear because I didn't know. So I sort of looked, maybe I would like to refer to myself as the homeless person taking up running because it totally looked out of place. And I proceeded to run when the starting line went, and I thought this was great. And right away I knew I didn't have a gift. And about halfway through, I was almost vomiting up against a tree. And I was really struggling, but I'm going to do this. And I did the 16 kilometers. I got in, and I could barely run 16 kilometers. And there's a hill at the 8-kilometer mark that was just amazingly tough. Anyways, I right at the end, I think I might have ran off course a bit and got missed by the sweeps. And when I crossed the finish line, they were actually, I refer to it as half an hour after last place. And everybody, they were doing the awards, and the announcer doing the awards says, "Hey, we have one more runner coming in, and it's so-and-so." And somebody ran up and gave me their medal and a bowl of lentils. And I thought to myself, I only got one direction to go. So I've started entering more races and longer races, and built on it from there. I still don't think I'm a strong runner. However, I've got the endurance part of it down. I get concerned with sometimes that people in the my recovery group will think that I'm acting out on my addictions with some of the distances that I run, because I run hundreds of kilometers a month. I do work the steps, and I do have a sponsor, and I do go to meetings all the time. So I like to view it as a healthy alternative. And I often think other people just, they should start doing something different, but I keep that to myself generally, because that would be rude. And yeah, so in the last 5 years of running, I've gone from, maybe being able to run 100 meters to losing terribly at the Stewart Mountain Challenge. This year was probably my best year ever. I've really struggled with some of the longer distances. So I had registered for the shorter ultras instead of, I like to register for races and live on Fantasy Island, not Vancouver Island. I registered for the shorter distances. With the first long distance race was the Prairie and Harriers Elk Lake Ultra, which I did with a friend. And then the real challenge was the 80 kilometer or 50 mile Sinister 7 in the Crow's Nest Pass. And I thought if I could finish that, then I'll up the distances on the other races that I had entered. And I did finish. It was a challenge. I did a lot of walking at the end, but they give you ample time. And then the next up was the Canadian Death Race. And that was difficult. That was the game changer for me, because I had to run at distances that I normally wouldn't be running at. I didn't even know I could run that far.
How far is that?
118 kilometers.
Wow.
They give you 24 hours to do it, and I did it in 23 hours, 45 minutes. And we ran the last 10 kilometers because the lady at the aid station, well, they kept telling me, like, if you can get to the transition area 4, you can pretty much walk the rest of the way, but they don't know how slow I walk. I just kept pushing and pushing, and then we were kind of casually, me and this guy from the army, he had only ever done a 28K race before. We're casually walking, and somebody says, we asked how far it was. We thought it was 5 kilometers. And they said, no, it's 10. And we'd already walked 2.5. And we're like, oh my goodness, we have to run. And I'm like, we can't just run a little bit. We have to run. I says, or I won't make it. And he says, okay, well, I'm happy following you. And this guy's like 23. And I'm like, well, I should be following you. In the end, he did pass with about 2 kilometers left to go. And we picked up 5 other runners along the way going, hey guys, if we don't hustle, we're not going to make it. And kind of went in as a group, which was kind of cool. That made me feel really good. 118 kilometers is not a short distance.
That's incredible,
Yeah.
Trent. It sounds to me like you just never gave up, and you kept putting one foot in front of the other, which is pretty much your story from start to finish.
Yeah, and it's. I did also the Canadian National Championship track run earlier in the year. I didn't have a good race, but I was third male, which was kind of a bit of a boost for me. And I went on from that to do the Black Spur Ultra, which was 2 laps of 54 kilometers, so 108 kilometers grand total, and I got my very first place in the veterans category.
Oh, congratulations!
I'll take that one. That was a big boost for me. I kind of got a little bit hurt on that one. Ended up in an air cast with some tendon issues, but that was gone in like a week to 10 days. And then I was able to do the Dream Nation Apparel's 24-hour track run in Duncan a week ago. And my body seemed to work good with that. I actually had 100 kilometers in at the 17-hour mark. And I sat in the chair and I had a nap. So my grand total ended up being 109 kilometers or 107 kilometers, something like that.
Oh, you don't look like you ran that last week.
No, that's the other thing too with the running. My recovery is really quick for some strange reason. So I've been running again since Wednesday. The last 2 years, there's been a bigger focus on swimming because I'd like to do the triathlon. Cycling, that's a story in itself too. Right after the cancer treatment, somebody gave me a pedal bike. It was too big for me. And within 3 months, I was on the Great Trail and rode across the province of BC. It took me, I think, 12 days, and it was 1,000 kilometers.
Wow, you just snuck that in there.
Yeah, I totally kind of gapped and forgot about that one on the being active. That's something that I've always wanted to do, and it's still a plan. I would love to ride the Great Trail across Canada. I haven't quite figured out when, maybe a couple of years from now. Just take a break from running and do something different for a summer.
I have no doubt that you'll do it.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. Wow, what a journey you've been on. I think it's incredible what you've done and what you're doing now. I'm interested, how many ultras have you done, would you say?
I have no idea. I'm done 6 this year.
6 this year?
This year, yeah. Well, I've done the Finlayson Arm one here, local too.
Oh yeah,
that was after the Black Spur Ultra.
I raced that one myself.
Yeah, and that's definitely a challenging one. It's
there's a lot of elevation,
a lot of technical stuff, and a little bit of running. Yeah. That's a tough one, for sure.
And they make you go through the water at the beginning.
Yeah,
too.
right
you get
at
your
the
feet
beginning,
soaking wet.
Yeah.
What's next for you, Trent?
Well, I have one more ultra this year, and that is the Dark, which is in a coal mine, and it's in the tunnel. So you're 250 meters in, 250 meters out, and repeat. And it's 24-hour. I've done it once before, and I'm looking forward to it because it's a coal mine that's in my hometown, and it's a coal mine that my family worked in. It hasn't been mining coal since like the 1920s, but my ancestors have worked in that coal mine, which is kind of interesting. And so I look forward to that. Next year, I'm going to up my distances. The goal is to do 100-miler, the Fat Dog, which is 120 miles. And if I still have a body left after that, I'll probably do the Divide 200. And
what's the longest distance you've done up until now?
124 kilometers on the track.
Okay.
So I still have a ways to go, so to speak.
If there was any message of hope that you could share for our listeners, anyone out there struggling in active addiction or going through the revolving door in and out of treatment, in and out of the rooms, what, particularly from your story and your life, like what is your message to them?
I think my message would be, if you're struggling, find a support group. Like for me, it was the 12-step meetings. There's other ones out there. I can't remember the names of any of them, but find a support group. Trying to do it on my own, it wasn't possible. And there's no shame in finding a support group. There's no shame in admitting that you can't do it on your own. It's like coming back from a relapse. There's no shame in going back to the meetings. I mean, it feels like crap and you don't want to do it, but the real shame is staying out there in active addiction. So find a support group, go to as many of the meetings as you can, check out different support groups, treatment centers are great, yes, but they're, a specific set of times. It could be a month, 3 months, or a year. But after that, the support groups. And once you get some time in, keep going, because then you can help other people. I mean, a lot of those support groups are dependent on people helping others. And having an open mind, somehow becoming honest and getting that open mind so that you can actually be receptive to new ideas and change. change everything. My favorite one is Shrek and Donkey when he says, "Change is good, Donkey. Change is good." I mean, for me, the biggest thing that I say is we all know where active addiction leads, but nobody knows where the adventure of recovery will take them.
That's beautiful.
That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And
I think that's a really important message. I think that anybody that's struggling is out there, they're having a really hard time and they don't know how to get from point A to point B. But hopefully your story today has shed light on that it just takes one baby step after another and to never give up. Because I see that that's what you've done in your life, Trent. You just, at every turn, you just never gave up. Don't give up.
Yeah, don't. One step at a time, one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, a minute at a time, if that's what it takes.
Yeah.
And finding a support group for me was instrumental. I couldn't do it on my own. I couldn't do it on my own, so I couldn't imagine what it would be like doing it on my own. I don't know. It's definitely changed my life, and it's given me a life worth living. There's no doubt about that. Like I said, I know where addiction was taking me, and it wasn't a very pretty place.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show today and sharing your story, your life story with us. I think it's going to help a lot of people.
I hope so. If even one person, if it helps even one person, it's worthwhile.
That's why we're doing this. Thanks
Awesome.
again, Trent.
Thank
really
you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.